Good morning, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the energies for this week with today's Monday's Musings. It feels really important that we just get on with it this week. You know, I have the most amazing new laptop, which in comparison to the old system that I was working with is really out there, really fast, really clear, really up together, up to date. Everything I could ever hope for, right? And it's ahead of me. It's, ability to do things is so much quicker that I'm having to step up. I'm having to integrate what is now needed of me as a result. I'm having to become the result of the investment that I've put in. Getting this laptop was a real journey for me. I know for most people it's just getting a laptop, but to actually acknowledge that one, I needed it, two, I was going to use it, how important what I do is, and the real need for me to get out there and just to do, cliche as it sounds, me. Financially, concerns getting a laptop. Physically, concerns, am I going to have enough warrant for it? Emotionally, all of it, on every single spectrum, I stood in the way of getting this laptop. I stood in the way of what I needed to help take me and what I offer to the next level. And that really feels like that's the energy we're facing this week. On the one hand, there's resistance, knowing what we need to do. And on the other hand, there's a backwards, forwards, pull, push, motion, contraction type energy to help just shift us through whatever may be blocking us here. For me, it is taking my work up to the next level. It is actually seeing it as a career rather than a hobby. Now, I love everything that I do and I do it as and when I'm asked to do it, but have I expanded to my fullest potential? No, you heard it first here. Absolutely not. I've done what I can in the moment, which is really important to acknowledge this week, but I've also been acutely aware that times they are changing. That I am changing, that from walking the path that I've walked, my own skills are developing and upgrading, and it took a machine, which there could be something in that. It took a machine to help me realize where I actually was and where I was lagging, where it was me that needed rebooting, where it was me that needed to look at the storage that was running out from all the memories that I was keeping and the old ways of doing things. Which brings me on to the cards that I'm going to use this week. The energy that I feel, I'm waiting for a dragon set of tarot, which has kind of irked something in me. There's a childlike innocence of wanting to return to believing in these archetypes. There's a deeper innate wisdom of knowing, for me, they are the ley lines of the earth, they are the feminine power, and they are real in that sense. And there's something else trying to come in as well in regards to how I choose, or we choose, to work with this potential. And it's there this week. It's really there and it's really building. Discussing this with a couple of friends of mine today, it feels quite important to remain transparent. It feels very relevant to make it relevant, to make it relatable, to acknowledge what is actually going on, and then as a result acknowledge where we are and what it is that's being asked of us and what we can offer in the long term. We're all seeing through the bullshit. All of us are seeing through the gimmicks, the ways that no longer work, which is wonderful. But in order to avoid going back to them, it is about holding space and allowing something new to come here, new to come here, however you want to see that. Actually, there's something there. It's not about however you want to see it. On the one hand, it's about what comes in to us, and on the other hand, it's about sitting there waiting for it to happen. And that's that balanced energy this week. There are going to be moments where we are being encouraged, invited to pause, to wait, to allow things to be received, and then obviously recognizing that this is a process, giving and receiving. Reciprocity is a process. So what are we going to give as a result? If we want balance, how are we embodying that? How are we instilling that in our everyday actions? You know, last night I stayed up till silly o'clock working with this new computer. Fantastic, amazing, doing things, ticking them off my list for today, but out of balance with my own health again. And we are going to see these things coming up to really, really hone in and look at, because it's not just about self-care. The next decade or so isn't just about self-care, it's about limpia, it's about spiritual cleansing, it's about allowing these energies to move forward and on through us To do that, we must restore balance. We must find ways that allow us to work and to be in one, that allow us to bring forth the feminine and the masculine as one action. And even though it feels a little bit confusing, a little bit almost irrational at times, a little bit almost, where is this going? There's a lot of emphasis on trusting that we do know what we're saying. We do know what we're saying, and that we may not be able to see it, and taking an opportunity to almost watch back, to observe ourselves, to see where we really are. Today I was passing on a few insights into posts and advertising, and I don't see myself as a business person. I don't see myself as marketing. I don't, I'm little old me sat in my room, which you can see a lot more of now. More on that in a moment. Just talking and saying whatever wants to come through for whoever wants to listen to it, but actually sharing today. And that's the emphasis. When we share, we really truly see where we're at, and that's why it's quite important to look at any boundaries we may have this week and how they're actually holding us back. Are they there for that other person, or are they there to help keep us into a narrative that we have outgrown this week? But in sharing some of the insights, the ideas, the creativity that was coming through this morning on my walk, taking a step back, I just had a moment of shit. How do I know these things? Oh my God, this is great. I can really work with this. Oh my goodness, I hadn't noticed how much I'd grown or how much I understood what was going on. And that is going to be a real changing point this week when we feel into what is trying to come through. And when I do that, it almost feels like a sense of summer, calm, peace, love, relaxing, trusting in what is occurring. So the other thing that I was going to share is, yes, you can see more of my room. You can see more of me because of this laptop. And that has made me feel a little bit insecure. And that gives me a little bit of a headache here, because what I'm insecure about is seeing myself through the eyes of others. If this week we can recognize that that is what is being reflected, we are seeing ourselves through the vision of others. It doesn't have to be true. It may be, but it doesn't have to be true. So really acknowledging what parts of that reflection, projection, whatever you want to call it, you're going to take on to work with to help you grow, and emphasis being grow. If there are things being reflected back to you, and that's where my knee hurts, actually my right knee, the masculine support here in particular, in our actions, in our behaviors, particularly maybe in regards to the men in our life as well. If there are moments that are being reflected back to us that don't help us grow, and that's where I sense it into my womb space, that don't help us grow in what we're creating in particular, we don't have to take them on as our own. This reading included. Okay, so I'm always saying you know yourself better than anybody else, and that is a real deep moral that I have, whether it's midwifery or healing or reading or whatever, but bringing out that version of you that knows what they're doing, trusting that, really stepping into who you are. Being unique in that beauty, being here present in that reality is what's really going to help us navigate these energies this week. And now I can see why I've picked the Wildwood Tarot. Well, many reasons, but on the smack bam on the front of the box here, this is the new version of the Wildwood Tarot. On the front of the box here, you have this soul banging their own drum, and then almost the symbol for the triple goddess here, banging their own drum in what it is they are here to create. And the ground around them is slowly defrosting, so allowing that time to just do a reading on a whole box, right? Allowing that time to just melt around you, to just defrost. I want to say the word allow again, and it does feel like there's a lot of allowing needed this week. Allowing that to just develop beneath you, to show itself. I hear the song Show Yourself, and I think that's from a Disney film. Yeah, it's Frozen 2. Hearing that song Show Yourself, allowing things to fall to the wayside, to just be released, to surrender to a process that knows what it's doing, yourself included, your body, all of it, so that certain parts of you that may have been hidden, frozen, protected, controlled, boundaries, whatever word you want to call it, to come to the surface now, so that you can see what it is you're creating in front of you. The other thing I want to share, there's a couple, it could go on forever, right? And that feels quite important, to be very aware of the messages around you and how you choose to interpret them. So I could sit here and, well, I'm going to an extent. One of the things I want to share is my microphone wire is, I need a new one. I need a new connection between the screen and what is being heard, what is being seen and what is being heard here. And that feels quite relevant this week. The other thing is I was going to use the runic tarot, which are a very Viking based energy, to fill into guidance for us, because that is evident. There is a real masculine driving force this week. The sun is coming out, isn't it? And it's just, oh my gosh, it opens us up to receive, and then that automatic reaction to give, and that is very present this week. But again, there's balance here. What are we allowing ourselves to receive? What are we producing as a result? So I have moved away from just the masculine action and decided to work with the Wildwood Tarot. As I say, they are the new ones, and that in itself feels like, if I could sum up the whole reading this week, using the old ways. I actually have the original deck of this as well. Using the old ways differently. It's not about chucking the baby out with the bathwater, or an analogy, but it's not about throwing everything out. It's about recognizing what does work and how to enhance that, what you do already know, and applying that to what you're trying to achieve. Really bringing forth some deep-seated skills from other professions, other stages in your life, particularly things that you have experienced when it comes to helping others with those experiences. Really bringing forth this learnt wisdom now in a different way, recognizing on the one hand this is your journey and it has experience and it has wisdom, on the other hand this is whoever's journey, and much as you can share that they still have that right to have their own path and figure things out, because that's what happened to you and that's how you got the wisdom. So allowing any wisdom this week to not only be embodied by yourself, but supporting others to find that truth within them is going to really be key. One last thing, I'm being drawn to a pot of sweets in front of me, and it's got the sweet originals, and that feels again like a beautiful emphasis as we're coming into the spring and everything is opening up and all these messages are rising to the surface to be seen. Finding the original sweetness in it all, the joy of it all, not getting caught up in the mind, particularly when it comes to synchronicities or coincidences. Oh, that could mean that and that could mean that. And that's where I want to bring it full circle, deciding how you're going to choose to interpret whatever comes through this week. So obviously for me, it can come through in a variety of different ways, and that is how I work, and I'm okay with that. But for this video in itself, it's going to be through the Wildwood Tarot. It's going to be, for me, tarot helps look at the reflection, but also embody whatever changes and guidance is required as a result. So whatever is going on, how are you receiving it and how are you going to interpret it in your actions? And that is going to be it. So 13 minutes in, definitely with the energy of the feminine, even though there's a lot of masculine drive, definitely there's a lot of feminine presence there as well. So taking our time to get things out of the box. It feels like an unpacking this week. Taking our time to unpack, to really look at what is in front of us bit by bit, breaking it down. And having a sigh of relief at the end. Maybe a cup of tea when this week is over to, yes, that's that done. Okay, so energies this week and how to best navigate them. I'm being drawn to look at the scarf above the curtains in this room, and it has the word thank you written on in Spanish, and it came from a concert of narco medicine for the people, narco bear medicine for the people, and it's a rainbow in colour. So being very grateful for the opportunities, the colourful opportunities that allow us to experience this human life, right, that bring forth the many different rays of potential this week. Okay. And that feels lovely. It feels excitable. It feels lovely. Energies for this week and how to best navigate them. Yeah. So I do have the world tree trying to pop out, and if that comes back up, obviously we will look at that. And that again feels pivotal. Things may keep popping up, and okay, if they come back for a second time or a third time, they're really worth looking at. Why? Because there's a great aspect of healing here in the Seven of Stones, the Seven of Pentacles. There's a lot of growth going on, and this here is exactly how I felt, just relaxed, calm, comfortable, and just allowing things to shift and move through us. You know, the rainbow serpent within us. We all talk about the wheel. There's a lot of ideals about the rainbow prophecy, the rainbow tribe, the rainbow serpent, recognizing that that rainbow bridges within us as well. It's our energy centers. Okay, so allowing those to be recalibrated, integrated, and rebalanced this week. How? Finding the gratitude and the peace of the stillness, in the knowledge that you're growing. Things are shifting, they're growing, just like the seasons outside. We can get really caught up in this very young mentality of, I need to do this, I need to change this, I need to fix this. Grow, gently, rooted, grounded. Okay, so I'm not going to shuffle the deck again because it feels like that is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, overall. Okay, so overall for the energy, we have the only upside down card, and when I look at the energy for this week, it's all major arcanas. There's only a few things that we have any control over this week. There's only a few minor arcanas here, and they include the 10 of Swords, the 5 of Stones, and the Queen of Bows. So really sitting and being open to any instruction now that is coming in regards to our mind and how that can impact our endurances. Because the card that I have overall is the 7 of Vessels, and it is upside down, and it's morning. But it is upside down, so we're not as confused as we think. We're not as undecided as we may believe we are. Okay, so if we turn this up the right way, and that's going to come when people are ready, so you can't force people's process this week, and that's going to be key, your own included. And you know, in recognizing that in the times of confusion, we gain clarity if we can just sit with that, if we can just be with that and know that actually this isn't the unknown, this is the entrance to what is known. This is just that little doorway where we are encouraged to sit and to be with what is happening, to really look over what has done, what has been and gone. Yeah, I want to say not pick the bones, but you may feel like you want to pick the bones. You know, you may feel like there's still more wisdom in there, in your mind, in your head, in your viewpoint of what is going on. Okay, but remember that this card was actually upside down initially. So really looking at whether or not there's still things there to be had, or it may just be that we're in a mourning process and we're letting go. And when we let go, naturally whatever is needed comes in anyway, but we can't let go by doing, we surrender. And that's the energy this week that is inviting us as we start to step into Pisces season. On the Monday today, we have the Mirror, we have the Hanged Man, and what I love about this deck, unlike the original Wildwood deck, so there's a few places in this deck that aren't the same as the Rider-Waite. And there's a few images that are a bit skew-if, and you think, oh, so the Mirror looks very much like the Moon card. And that's the beauty of it. With this deck, there is a numbered sequence. There is a structure and an order. So on the Monday, even in times where you feel as if nothing is changing, this is the Hanged Man, the Mirror, where you feel like nothing is changing or you're having to wait and be patient. Actually, there is a structure being formed. There is an order being formed. There is a rebalancing here being formed in regards to what is being reflected back to you. Really observing that, particularly as you lead into the full moon by the end of the week in Virgo. So we're coming into Pisces season. Yeah, the Hanged Man. There are things being delivered and created, but there are also things being let go. Taking time, integrating, calibrating, watching the cycles within you. Yeah, feeling into the moon, but also more importantly, feeling into your own creative cycles here. See how they're being reflected back, projected back, perhaps sometimes with the very things that you're creating. One of the things I have to kind of come to terms with at the moment is the whole house moving malarkey. Oh my God. no matter what I do, I'm coming up against barriers. And this morning it was just like, let go and trust. Yeah, just let go and trust, because right now isn't the time. For whatever reason, it could be tomorrow, it could be in 10 minutes, but right now in this moment, I'm not moving. I'm the hanged man. Everything else around me is shifting and changing, and that's actually a very important place to be, because it allows us to witness and observe the cycles. It allows us to know when to act, when to receive, so that we don't end up haggard like this little heron here, constantly creating without any break. That's very blurry now. Is that gonna... Okay, so there we are. I'm going to leave it at that. When we're constantly creating without any break, everything becomes blurry. That actually leads us to the clarity that we feel we haven't got. It's because we're boom, boom, boom. We're not allowing time for things to come in. So going back to that drum beat, that on, off, on, off, on, off, or as Metatron would say, the binary code, the 10, 10, 10, on, off, on, off, on, off, allowing a reaction to occur, doing something, waiting, allowing it to come back, that communication with yourself, with others, with source, with whatever it is you're trying to manifest, waiting for that to come back with the answer that you can actually move forward with, the answer that you need. I was going to say want, but actually on the Tuesday that may not be relevant. It may be what you need. Okay, so you have the strength card on the Tuesday, but in this deck, the woodward, in this deck, it's actually in the position of justice. And there's going to be a lot of that this year, because originally strength was in the position of justice. And if we're going to say that we're in a strength year, then ironically we are also in a justice year. So recognizing that true strength comes from balance. True strength, as you can see here, he's walking alongside the lynx, but he also has a lynx pelt on his head. He's embodying the medicine. Yeah, true strength comes from being what it is we are trying to achieve. Okay, so if I was sat here talking about relaxing and being calm and trusting, and wasn't trusting and wasn't, even with these messages, I never know what's going to come through. If I was trying to figure that out, that's not alignment. That's not alignment. And on the Tuesday, we're going to be shown. We're going to be shown from the universe where we may not be aligned. Really being asked to, it goes beyond walk our talk now. It goes further into, in order to transcend whatever is going on for us, letting go and stepping into what it is we're trying to achieve. Being honest with ourselves, particularly where we have moved forward and perhaps may not be allowing ourselves to realise that. Because on the Wednesday, straight to the chest, right? On the Wednesday we have the Sun card. That's where all this energy is going, straight to the chest, inviting us to open our heart to our potential, to remind us that we are children of the sun, that we are sourced. All life is sourced by something so incredible up in the sky, the biggest amount of fire and power, remembering that in everything that we do. You can see the horse behind them. I must go there. Actually, I'm always guided to go there. The horse behind them, standing on that hill, riding the power, the energy within the earth. I really felt that today. I really felt that from the feminine coming up. But it's only going to get so far if we don't open our heart to our own abilities. And on the Wednesday, that really is what we're being encouraged to do. And I feel like there's a bit of lip service. I feel like, well, I've heard this, and I feel like, well, I've done this, and I feel like nothing's changed. Bring that back to the self. Have you heard your own power? Have you opened your heart to your own love? Have you embodied the changes that you want? On Wednesday, that's going to be made quite clear. Keeping it light, because we do also have the childlike innocence here, but keeping it light, keeping it fun, but remembering, like the bonbons in front of me, you're being returned to the sweet original version of yourself that you were. That might open your heart a little bit. Things may come to light that need to be seen. But knowing that behind you, you have that earth, you have that blossoming, you have the power of the horse, you have great grounding here. Now is the time to feel and know that you're safe enough to do so. So this character has a blindfold on. You don't need to see what's going on the Wednesday. We need to feel. and trust that for the light that it brings. On the Thursday, we have the 10 of Swords, but in this deck, it's actually called the 10 of Arrows. So here we can see it's the more, as a result, the more outer masculine coming in and showing us exactly how to align to our dreams, our visions, our actions, to really stand tall in everything that we've discovered, to know that we have come to the end of this mental instability, insecurity, uncertainty, and now is the time to bring it all together. And that's where I feel it right above my right eye, and I see the tree of life and a dandelion. I see a dandelion in my mind's eye. You know, where you blow away the wish, but you also count the time, right? And sometimes when it comes to mentally feeling as if we're running out of time on the Thursday, that can give us a real deep invitation to go into what is going on here. Where do I need to be more aligned, and where do I need to take direct, focused action in order to move forward? Because the 10 of Arrows is the end game. It is the end point, and it is about taking all of these ideas now and putting them into an action, because it's that gives us instruction on the next step and brings us clarity that we're looking for. And the turning point, because then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I wanted to go back to the 7 of Vessels then. On the Friday, we do have the wheel. We do have an opportunity of great change. And remember that change can go up, change can go down. We can go backwards, we can go forwards. And that, I was very tempted to go back to the 7 of Cups, very tempted to go back to that initial energy, or bring that energy even of uncertainty into it. And that may be needed. That may be needed to bring forth I'm not quite sure, surrendering, handing over, asking for help as and when, and bringing in that extra opportunity to shift the perspective, to shift your own narrative. Sometimes we can get really caught up in our own head, and even the Wheel of Fortune, the Wheel of Fate can be that. You know, we can be in a certain place in our head and only get that viewpoint, only get that perspective, because we can't get out of that. And if we really feel that on the Friday, seeking aid, seeking help, what is going to help us shift this? Well, obviously we do have the full moon coming up, and you can see the moon here. Emotionally, yes, really tying into the weather, because what I love at the bottom here, it reminds me of the hagstones that are used as the weather stones. Really feeling into the weather of the situation, of where you're at as well, is going to be key. There is no point people telling you or advising you or guiding you to move forward if you're feeling tired. There is no point people suggesting that you rest and be still if you're feeling full of energy, because the emphasis here, the biggest change point, is to recognize that you are the change, that only you can shift this. And that is a real sucky balls answer, but it's true. So finding the support that's going to help you find that power back within you, that's going to help you weave your own fate, that's going to help you bring everything together so that you can find, well, here, the t-shirt, yeah? I've been there, bought the bloody t-shirt, so that you can find that wisdom, because it's there and it's being created. And that is, of course, if you haven't found it yourself, you may already have that and think, yes, I'm ready to help other people with this. So get out there. It's needed. Share that if there's going to be any change. Okay, what is the one thing that keeps the wheel moving? Well, in particular with the water wheel, it's emotions, it's sharing, it's being of the flow, it's not holding back. If we hold back and stay still, nothing moves, right? There is more to that on the Saturday, and it does feel like it's the fact that there's more to it that can make us almost feel as if we're a rabbit in the headlights, because on the Sunday we have the Queen of Bows, the hare, but you can see here she's almost mad. She's almost crazy. She's almost quite, oh my God, what is going on? Not how you would normally see the Queen of Wands, not how you would normally see the Leo feminine energy. But it is that sense of there being more, slightly overwhelming, okay? Because on the Saturday, we have the 5 of Stones here. We have endurance. Wouldn't it be easier just to stay in our cave and tend to this little light here? Yeah, just keeping ourselves just warm enough. Like me with the laptop, if I stick to a piss poor version that's really, really old, then there's only so much I can do. And and it's that overwhelm, having compassion there, of course, for that side of us that wants change, but is almost stuck in the midpoint way, that wants change, but also feels like, I just don't want it to be the same way as X, Y, and Z. Well, that's not change, is it? That's the same. So really looking at the mindset, the fire, the drive, the ambition, the spirit that is behind the change, why you're doing it. Is it from, my reaction to the laptop this week was most definitely from a place of lack. How am I going to afford to pay this? And definitely from a place of worth. Do I do enough to warrant this? So really looking at what energy is behind the fire that you are building in order to create change? Has that changed? And if not, you're remembering that the Queen of Wands is all about nurture. Queen is about nurture. Okay, so what needs nurturing here? How can we encourage this little version of ourselves to maybe put a few more sticks on the fire, to maybe be a bit braver and realize that actually the heat they get, the joy they get, the belief that we get in ourselves comes from building our light, standing in our light, showing our light, and not being startled by it, being proud of it, helping it to grow. Okay, so overall, there is one, let's take those out. 4 major arcana, so the solidity, the structure, the very fabric of it all that's going to give us the footing that we need comes from the universe this week, comes from the major aspects that are occurring. Yes, the full moon is going to have a big impact here, but it's building up to this. And normally when it comes to the full moon, it's the full moon, the day of the full, day before, day of, and day after that is really quite potent. However, what I feel is it's starting now on the Monday. That energy is building. It's really starting as we go into the Pisces season as well. It's really starting to build momentum emotionally, using that, feeling into that, knowing that actually a lot of the actions may occur before the full moon. A lot of the steps needed may occur before the actual outcome. Okay, so where are we going to go with that? It's almost like there's a timeline that's a bit backwards forwards again this week, and finding balance right in the center of it. So doing things now, even though they feel as if they won't have an outcome or they're not directly related to the outcome, being very open to receive how things can be returned in many ways that we may not have been expecting on the Monday in particular. We then have justice, but recognizing that justice and strength are one and the same. So the balance that we have within who we are, our voice here, our light here, our divinity here, is what's actually going to give us the strength to restore any imbalances that we may feel in our life. Yes, it's going to come from the major arcanas, but also recognizing that the major fates, the major aspects of life are also on a collective level a reflection of us as the individual. And that's where my eyes blur, that's where my third eye feels a bit, or that's where my screen looks very rosy tinted. And this week we are going to be shown perhaps where we haven't been looking at ourselves in particular through the clearest perspective available, where we may be seeing ourselves through rose tinted glasses. Having compassion for that, but also recognizing that sometimes the blindfold just needs to be taken off. That actually, when we go back to the sun card, our light isn't too bright for us and it isn't too bright for anyone else. And that normally when we're surrounded by people, situations, events that mirror back that it is too much, it's because it's feeling like it's too much for us, and we want to go back to that little cave-like energy. The universe this week is going to nudge you, guide you, push you at times to stand in who you are in order to restore the justice to your life, the strength for those around you, but also feeling into the emotional changes that have occurred. When I was walking my dog today, I was listening to some music and I was coming back and I was listening to the song Christina Aguilera, Fighter. And over the years, I've tried to tame, control, placate, give lots of reasons to this fighter type energy within me. You know, I don't particularly want to have a story that has been one of fighting my whole life. However, with essence in the more spiritual realms as well, and the well-being factor, there are times when we have had to fight, and that has brought up a great strength, a great light. It's now about nurturing that raw into a roar that doesn't have to shout and scream, but that can hold space when is needed, because it is going to be needed this week. There's going to be a lot of going back to our reserves and our resilience being called forth, so that we can change how we see that, so that we can change how we see the masculine within us and the feminine as a result, so that we can change. This morning when I was doing the daily guidance, I had a real clear vision of Medusa as I was tuning into the tarot cards. And you know, Medusa isn't the ideal goddess image that you see, but having worked, and yes, I'm going to say that, worked with the archetype of Medusa, there was an awful lot there about recognizing the beauty of transformation, recognizing the beauty of shedding our stories, but also holding on to the essence, the fire, the kundalini power that we have gained as a result. And I don't always see that, whether it's pushing away and needing that to be brought back in healing, or whether it's fearing our own light, there seems to be an emphasis here that it's a bad energy. And actually this week is going to be brought to light. Is no energy is a bad energy. It's about knowing how to utilize and work with that, how to weave with that to create change. And the world is going to show us this week, and it's going to be the solid structure and foundation that we have for the rest of the year. This morning I tuned in and I could really feel my own Hermit year coming, which is in July for me, and not until January for the rest of the year when we go into that 9 energy. But it felt very Merlin type energy trying to come in for me already, and it's going to be the emphasis for the rest of the year. How that is portrayed, I'm not sure, but what I am certain of is I need to let go of the uncertainty in regards to my ability to be that energy. The Hermit, the Hermit card, the Virgo energy, runs through my whole birth chart, even though I'm a Leo. So when we come into this Virgo moon this weekend, we're going to be shown our true light, our perhaps hidden emotional light, our psyche light, and how we can use that to guide ourselves and each other forward. And that's where we have the 10 of Swords instruction. We have the 1 sword card here, and it isn't about berating ourselves mentally. It isn't about trying to figure things out ourselves out. It's taking it to the next level. These 10 of Swords, this mental anguish is only going to come when we try and be something that we're not. The more authentic we are this week, the more we are going to be able to use all these creative ideas, all these different mindsets, all these different viewpoints to really instruct where it is we're headed. So an example, my home, based on where we are, I need to rent, inside I'd love to buy, but there's also a part of me that wants to have a field or travel. And yes, like the 10 of Swords, my energy is everywhere, my mindset is everywhere, and I can panic and try and sort one out and do it, or I can just sit and hold space and watch them all slowly come together for something that is going to be perfect for me in this moment. And this week, that's where we're really being encouraged to examine our mind, to see where it all goes off, to see what it has in common, to bring it all together and apply that to where we actually are mentally this week if we are to move forward from this loop. It's one thing to know why we're doing something. It's one thing to look at where we may need to heal, and it's another to look at what we may have inherited, and that's wonderful. But underneath it all, what action are we going to do to move that from this loop in our mind to rewire our brain? And that's what it feels like is important this week. Rewiring is going to be occurring in our brain. So what do we need to hold space for that? Well, when it comes to the Pentacle cards, we need healing of this endurance. We need healing of this woe is me energy. We need healing of this I can't do this, or I feel small energy. And that healing doesn't come from pushing. That healing doesn't come from, much as we have the devil card underneath, the picking of those bones. That healing doesn't actually come from frustration or holding ourselves back or trying. But sometimes when we push ourselves when we're not ready, we're holding ourselves back as well. So that's recognizing that fighter type energy, where it can also be, when out of balance, incredibly detrimental to healing, incredibly detrimental, but compassion, healing, peace, gentility with this side of us that may not quite feel ready, that may feel overwhelmed. Okay, what one thing can we do, and then let it go? Okay, so that we don't end up the rabbit in the headlights. When we think of the Queen of Wands, there is this common myth that the Queen of Wands is all power, and for she's a fire sign, right? She's a Leo sign, that's how she has to be. And sometimes absolutely that is the case. You go after, you get, you do whatever. I'm also a Queen of Wands because I'm a Leo star sign, and there is the other side, like with all energies, there is the other side of the Leo, and the other side particularly of the Queen of Wands this week, that sits open-legged, open to being grounded, to having that vulnerability of our emotions and our creativity exposed and seen as needed, and being proud of that and sitting in that and waiting for whatever is needed to come in, nurturing the indecisions, nurturing the mourning, nurturing the release of who we were, knowing that we're not letting go, we're actually bringing it back into us. So one card for the energies that we are. How beautiful. Okay, so we do have the Three of Bows on the one side, the Three of Wands, and here you can see those two serpents rising up the body. the masculine and the feminine, but there is a pause. There is a pause. The arrow hasn't been lifted yet. The bow and arrow hasn't been lifted yet. There is a pause here, a hello, a stop moment. Let's just clarify what is going on. Okay, there's a union of the masculine and the feminine here that is occurring, of source, of spirit, and of Pachamama, that is happening through us all. This is that rainbow serpent, that healing that is actually happening before we are to move forward. And of course, underneath we do have we have justice, or the strength card, which is the stag, and there's that character there with the drum, but also the pole star, the star card. It's all about the vision and the strength that we have to keep walking towards that vision. And where does that strength come from? The only card I actually asked for, being very aware of that this week, the only thing you actually ask for, making sure that it's that you receive and almost close everything with. So if you're asking for someone to listen, ensuring that happens. If you're asking for financial support, ensuring that you follow the steps towards that, really opening your heart to it. The only thing that is needed this week is the opening of the heart, allowing the emotions to flow, feeding from the emotions and the beautiful wisdom that comes with them, recognizing that you are the very waters of the life that you are creating. Take care, have the most incredible week, and I shall see you next week.